Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Boxing, Weights and Rugby YouTube channel. And today we will be talking boxing with my good friend Enda. How are you, my man?
I'm great. I'm loving. Well, I've no big thing against weight, but I'm loving 2 of the 3 things on your channel, rugby.
Yeah.
So, looking forward to the Rugby World Cup.
Yes, I can't wait. I was just watching Squidge's video on Chile.
Oh, he's brilliant.
He's phenomenal.
But his delivery as well is so clever, you know.
Yeah, it's so good. It's very clever, and it really does teach you about the whole thing. And his enthusiasm for the game is brilliant. I wish for copyright reasons we could have that in boxing, but we can't.
I'm sure he does fall foul of the copywriters from time to time. I know he does have videos listed, and he's after putting hours of work into them.
Well, they take ages. I would imagine, like the videos I put in, they take a good 5 to 10 hours to create, and they're half the length his is. And I do half the research he does. It's insane.
Yeah, but I'd say a lot of his research is just learned knowledge at this point as well. True. You know what I mean? Like he seems to be an encyclopedia of rugby. Like
it's wonderful, and I can't wait for the World Cup as well. And actually,
it's funny because I didn't expect Scottish people to be looking forward to it at all.
Horribly nervous. I've really not enjoyed the fact that people are like, yeah, Scotland are the team to like the outside horses, and I'm like, no. I much prefer when people like Scotland to shit, and then
it's kind of, I just have a feeling we're going to have a kind of a repeat of Japan for Ireland, where we're the top seed, but we peaked in year 3, not in year 4. Whereas you look at Scotland South Africa and France, who were just looking immense. But France lost one of their key forwards.
Yes, Intermac. Lost Intermac. That was
no, the forward today.
Was it?
Yeah, I don't have his name to hand because that's what I'm like with names. But so that's 2 big injuries for France. But we'll see. But definitely South Africa have thrown down the marker.
They were wonderful against New Zealand. It's
my God, it was great.
What we're both hoping for to not happen is that they both do exactly what you would expect, which is Scotland get beaten by South Africa and Ireland and go out, and then Ireland then immediately go out to, I think it's New Zealand you're likely to play in the quarterfinals.
But do you know I'd rather play New Zealand than France?
Oh yeah, and absolutely. In the home World Cup, you'd rather play the All Blacks than France.
So I mean, and South Africa were saying France, and South Africa were saying they'd rather France. I was like, happy with that.
Yeah, was it Dante, the guy that you were talking about?
Sorry, yes,
Dante, yes, the number 12.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, he's the forward. Jeez, he's massive.
He's massive. He's an inside centre.
Christ.
Yeah, he's huge. Anyway, guys, you can clearly tell Luke's not here because we've spent the first 3 minutes of the monthly boxing review talking about rugby.
Oh, anyway, yeah. So, well, anyway, at least we're within the scope of the channel.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. So let's get on to the boxing.
Let's get on to boxing.
Shall we do this in reverse order? So we'll start from this weekend. We'll get that out of the way, and we'll kind of head.
Yes, because we'll have more to talk about.
Absolutely right. UsykDubois, the big fight from the weekend, and highly controversial circumstances around the fight, and I still can't figure out why. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm agreeing with you there because I was like, highly controversial, was it? I just think it was clever by Frank Warren after an abysmal performance by his boxer. He just put it in the mind of everyone that somehow his boxer was robbed, from a low blow. And he's created this whole, thing around it, and TNT Sports have kind of decided to run with it. Now, on the Saturday night, I was doing the watch along with Joel, so we weren't privy to the BT commentary. And on first look, we said, that's low. And then when they did show it again, we were like, oh, it's not as low as we thought, but still, I thought, still low. Referee called it immediately, and everything went as was. I mean, he didn't call it a deliberate low blow, which he easily could have, because it was an uppercut into the breadbasket, as it were. So I mean, even the whole punch, like it wasn't as if he punched down and it pushed his protector down. It went up, so it brought the whole protector up and effectively crushed his nuts. You know what I mean? And into that really painful kind of breadbasket area where your bladder is, and all those bits. So I didn't think it was. I think the only controversy was the controversy that Frank Warren cleverly created to deflect from his boxer's abject performance.
I think I was a little more impressed with Dubois than you were in bits. There was moments where I was like, okay, he doesn't look totally out of his depth, but I didn't give him a round. I thought a lot.
I hadn't. Neither myself nor Joel had
Yeah.
given him a round at all. Even that round that people seem to give him, where the low blow.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, he should have finished that round on top, and he didn't. He let Usyk just back into it. And Usyk, the consummate professional, every round he made sure to finish on top.
Well, that was it. He chased him around for like 20 seconds after, and then he got clipped coming in.
Yeah.
And then Usyk turned it, and so suddenly he comes into the center of the ring where he belongs. Yeah. And I thought Andy Clark summarized it quite well, which was basically a case of he had no expectations, so he thought Dubois did okay, and then that was really about as far as it went. And I think, like I said, hello, Stephen.
Hey, Steve.
Hope you're doing well, my friend. Hope you're doing well.
What did you make of Dubois' performance on Saturday?
What did you think of?
Am I being too harsh on Dubois? But even the other thing I'll say, and people talk about, taking the knee or whatever, but his body language was dreadful all fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't look like he wanted to be there at all.
It didn't look like a fight for the unified Ring Magazine heavyweight title, did it?
No, but I wasn't expecting much at all, and I said Usyk would close it in 6-9, so I was right. I caught the edge of the 9 there, but there was nothing in that fight that made me say, God, Dubois isn't a bad heavyweight. He's not at world level at all, as far as I can see from that fight.
But how can you be a world level heavyweight with the way that they've moved Daniel? And Anthony Yard has a similar thing, whereas they have played the sanctioning body alphabet game as well as you could possibly play it.
Oh, yeah.
Because Daniel's had 2 big fights, which is Joyce and Usyk, and he's been stopped in both of them. And his best win outside of that is Nathan Gorman.
Nathan Gorman, for the British title.
The guy he beat for the world title. Is it Brian?
Chris Bryan, is it?
No, for the WBA regular belt, like the guy.
Oh yeah. Oh, that thing. Yeah, I didn't even watch that, so
No, and like Loreno has. I felt for him in the Loreno one because ACL goes, and I actually thought he did very well in recovering from the Loreno stuff. But it was I think that's fair. And I actually think Stephen's right.
100%, Stephen, I'm in complete agreement with you there.
Most people have come round to this.
Oh, yeah.
They've kind of calmed down. And I think the controversy starts, like you said, because you didn't have the TNT stuff, was Frampton comes in halfway through, irate, saying that Daniel Dubois has been robbed of the heavyweight championship.
I saw that at the end, and I went,
totally
how
overstepped.
wrong is he?
He's overstepped the mark terribly there. Like he's got. If you want to be cynical, you can be cynical, but realistically, I think he's just got way too excited.
Yeah, I mean, people lean heavy, really go in on Everton boxer.
Oh, Bellew
for being, a matchroom yes man. While for me, it looked dreadfully the same. It really pushed Frampton down in credibility for me, that he just, anything for a yes man. But then you could say, well, he's, a team player or whatever, and he's on his team. But no, to me, it was a demented rant. And he was going on about legal and illegal. And I was like, do you really know the difference between legal and illegal, Mr. Frampton? Maybe we should ask your financier about that. But and then the next morning he comes down with his humble,
he does retract it.
The amount of climb downs on Sunday morning, because me, I was just not having any of this.
You keep receipts.
But any of the Usyk slander Saturday night, I was going. I think it was 1:00 before I said, right, well, I'm done fighting with people on this. I proved it all night. It was officially it was a low blow. And you can say, oh, the ref, allows them, and the ref doesn't allow them. And they point to Anderson, and Anderson, he hit the guy on the leg, and he hit the guy on the side, the kind of the hip, which is a low blow. But what happened? the other guy didn't react, so there was no need to give them a 5-minute break. Like there was no punishment for Dubois. So what are they complaining about? The fact that Usyk got a 5-minute break that the referee gave to him, like, which is completely well within the rules. I mean, had any of those opponents gone down from their blows that were low, they would have been entitled to the same break, but they didn't. It didn't continue like that. And from all the talk of as well, and we're talking about the referee, and I didn't like that from the Boxing News podcast. They said, "Oh, maybe the referee should reinforce it in the ring." You're like, no. If it's high, the referee will tell them. Otherwise, it's fine. See, what you're doing here is you're pushing it back on the referee, and you're making the referee the bogeyman, because then it gets the boxers off the hook, and that's an easy out. Well, it's not. The referee clarified. He was asked, and I think that's very telling, that Dubois' team actually asked him about the low blow, and he told them what was and wasn't. Yeah. So I think it was in their mind for this to be part of it. Because they were aware that Usyk isn't particularly fond of shots to the lower abdomen, which most people aren't.
I'm certainly not. I'm not a fan of it at all. But yes, so we'll clarify a couple of things that I'm sure you're all well aware of by now, which is the trunks are not a legal shot unless the referee says otherwise. If the referee does not state in the center of the ring before the fight, if it makes contact with the shorts, it's not a legal shot. No matter what angle you saw of that, he's made contact with the short. Whether it's high or not, it's irrelevant. He hasn't said the shorts are legal, the shorts are illegal. The other thing is, in boxing, the old adage is you hit them everywhere you can as long as you get away with it. They didn't get away with it.
Exactly.
It is that simple. So it is a technically illegal shot, and he didn't get away with it. That's what happens. Did Usyk take the entire 5 minutes? Yeah, but you'd be stupid not to.
Like Usyk is he's been boxing his whole life. He's the wiliest guy, there. Yeah. I mean, it's like football, it's like rugby, the dark arts as they're called. They're going to play the referee. They're going to get the advantage they can. When it's your guy getting it, we're all delighted. And when it goes against your guy, then you're not happy. But the fact of the matter is, that's just the way it is. It's like when people cry now about, oh, that's not a penalty, there wasn't enough contact. But any contact that's not a clear tackle is going to be a penalty in football nowadays, and that's just it. So it is a case of, you're upset when it goes against you, but you like it when it's for you. And the fact of the matter is, Usyk saw, and it's not as if the referee stopped and waited and was going to. He immediately called it a low blow,
Yeah, and let's be fair, it's the would Usyk get up? Well, I think he would. It's kind of irrelevant. Again, it's irrelevant because the reality is it was called a low blow. Usyk had 5 minutes, but let's be crystal clear on this when we talk about how much this kind of hurt Daniel's chances. Daniel had 5 minutes rest, and Usyk had 5 minutes rest. They get the same 5 minutes. One of them has been punched somewhere above the groin and had it yanked up there, and one of them hasn't. That's the reality of the situation. And yeah, it hurt because it was if that shot is 6 inches higher, it's a peach of a shot. But if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. That's the reality of the situation. Right, here's the thing. It's all about the execution and moments in, especially elite boxing.
Yeah.
At the highest level, you get very few opportunities to go for it. And he didn't. And
I think he tried to go for it, but
yeah. But that's the thing. If he tried and went all in, and he's not good enough, then that's fine, and he can rest easy. If he didn't, then it's an opportunity where he kind of kicks himself. I think what they now need Daniel to do to rebuild him is basically he needs to take a step back, but not all the way back to where he was. The gulf and chasm from the level he's been boxing at to getting in with Usyk and Joyce is ridiculous. Like you're talking about top 3 pound for pound, Ring Magazine unified heavyweight champion, Joe Joyce at the time, multiple he's won everything in the amateurs, robbed of an Olympic gold medal, one of the top prospects in heavyweight boxing, and then you've got Nathan Gorman coming off an extended layoff. Kevin Loreno, who is really a cruiserweight, and an American who'd fought something like 1 in 3 years, who'd beat nobody. Like, there needs to be this middle ground where they start building him up bit by bit. And the only reason they don't do that is if they think he gets beat at that level.
Well, it costs money to do that, you know. And is that money Frank Warren is willing to invest? Because I still think, and I'm not sure an official objection will ever go in with the WBA.
I'm sure. I think the objection will go in. I just think they don't care. I don't think it matters. What? They're just
but
going
the
to go.
Cost involved, I think Frank is probably just going to go, do you know what? He'll talk the talk, and then at the end of the day, or else he'll put in a half-arsed, appeal.
That's what I think it is, because it's a case of going, you just need to perpetuate the narrative. Because in my personal opinion, this has rescued the credibility and promotability of Dubois going forward. Because we'll get to the end of the fight now. So, end of the 5th, that was probably his best round. Did fine in the 6th. 7th got tough. And he goes down at the end of the 8th. It starts with I think it's a body shot. And there's a couple of cuffing shots to the head, and he goes down.
Now,
and then,
I'm just going to say on that going down, I thought that was a clever move. Yes. Because it bought him time, and it was near the end of the round.
So then he's fine if he's fine, he doesn't have to prove his ability to fight because he's got the minute to recover. But then comes the 9th. Don Charles has had a word with him because I think Don Charles was worried he wasn't going to get up. He hit that shot, by the way, that Usyk hits him with is an absolute beauty.
Yeah, because everyone's going, oh, he was knocked down with a jab. I thought that was a brilliant shot myself.
It's a straight right hand, if that makes sense. Like it was a straight right hand. He's not right in front of him. He's come right off to the side, as Usyk loves to do. So this is one of the things we're going to do.
Because he was on the temple, and it was,
boom.
In real time, even when I was, chatting with Joel, I was like, oh, that's a peach of a shot.
Yeah.
And Dubois went down, and I said, I don't think he's going to get back up because I think the fight had been beaten out of him at this stage.
See, when you look at the slow motion replays, Dubois' face isn't concentrated. It's a shock. He doesn't see that punch coming. Because he's knackered, and I think Usyk's beaten the fight out of him. And again, it's a case of right, what you want to do when you're on the knee is wait till the referee gets to 8. Then you stand up. He didn't wait until the referee got to 8. He waited till the referee got to, we'll say 9 3/4.
Yeah, because he'd said 9, clearly. Yeah. And, and I often think, it's the kind of oh, I want to continue, but they don't. They want the referee to wave it off.
Yeah.
And they want, me think the lady does protest too much kind of a thing.
But this is the thing. After the fight, he doesn't protest at all. When the referee waves him off, he just walks back to his corner.
Oh, yeah, but he was looking at his corner to call it, and they didn't, and he went, fine, I'm not doing it either. I'm not.
So Dubois now got a tag.
But he had that tag already from some people.
Yeah, certainly. So this is a case. I think for some people in boxing, there is this adage of, once you quit once, that's it. It's in you. And the hardest time to do it is the first time. You'll do it a second time. A la our friend Tony Bellew, who's very vehement in his opinion on that front. And if you think that, it's just proving you that you prove it right. I think it varies It varies because I think if you acquiesce once, I do think you are liable to acquiesce again. If you do a Duran style, which is a hissy fit, is the best way I can describe it, and go, fuck this. I think that's different because I don't think you do that again. I don't think you make that same mistake. If you acquiesce, I do think that's different. And I do think that's now twice that he's acquiesced.
Yeah, when you realize that way out is available to you and you take it. Now, and I'm not going to criticize any boxer for doing it because obviously they're getting in the ring and they're getting their head punched off them for it.
And they know how they feel.
However, in comparison to other boxers, they're going to be seen in a poorer light, whether be it for right or for wrong. People that view boxing as this, ultimately kind of a battle of machismo and, just never say die attitude, then that's where they don't like it because that's what boxing is for them in their head. If you see boxing as a sport and you win and you lose and you come back, then you can understand how you play that game. Yeah. But I understand I mean, on his body language was dreadful.
It's a weird one because, again, I don't understand, because that's your shot. I don't think Daniel gets another shot at a unified heavyweight title.
Well,
I think this is
the only way
this is
he
what makes
will
it
is if people want an easier defense,
Yeah, but I don't get. I personally, that's the one. Like, I kind of understand the Joyce. Your face is caved in. He's panicked, and you go, right, I'm young. I can come again. It was too much too soon. Fine. I can't see it this time around because you've done it once, so you know the world's going to be against you if you do it again. And it's that that is everything. You win that fight, he makes how much money to fight Fury? Like, it's all there. Or the rematch.
But I don't think it was ever on the cards that he was going to win that.
And I think that's the thing, is he ultimately knew that. And I think, like you said, he acquiesced and goes, right, I can't beat this guy. And like I said, Usyk is one of the best fighters, one of the best top 2 cruiserweights of all time, arguably the best cruiserweight ever. An all-time great, modern boxing great. And he's bloody brilliant. And
he's so great to watch as well, a skilled
craftsman
at work. Yeah. I mean, especially like in the earlier rounds, just seeing how he was doing it, it was really a joy to watch, because people were talking about, master craftsman boxers. And I said, well, Usyk, if you can include, current boxers, you really have to say Usyk is. Lomachenko is as well, but Lomachenko's shine has kind of gone off with his losses, whereas Usyk obviously still is very much in the ascendancy. But it'll be interesting to see now, does Usyk Fury happen, and who's it? Hrgovic is standing in the way now of.
I think the Hrgovic fight happens again. So I think there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, I will say I think Usyk is physically deteriorating.
Oh God, yeah.
You can see he's not as physically good as he was in the first Joshua fight. I thought you could see a difference from fight 1 to 2. It takes its toll. And of course it does.
The war in Ukraine will also take its toll.
Of course it is. He's away fighting, like literally fighting a war. So
but even if he isn't involved in the combative stuff, that whole thing will absolutely, impact on you. Seeing your brothers in arms dying and being killed. I mean, it's bound to have an effect on you, and it doesn't always evoke that rocky response either. In the real world, it physically drains and takes years off of you.
And I think now Fury, we've both made this quite clear. We don't think Fury fancies the fight. I think Fury is now waiting him out, because I think Fury is going, right, I'm going to fight nobodies for tens of millions, and Usyk, because Usyk has all the belts, is going to have to defend against top heavyweight after top heavyweight. He's not a bigger guy, so it's going to be physically more training. So when I do get to him, he's not going to be the fighter he was. That's what I think is currently happening.
I couldn't disagree with you, and it's a clever move by Fury. And at the end of the day, like, boxing is a business, and Fury is playing it for what it is. And Suleiman's happy to let him do that with the WBC belt. I thought the WBC was very brazen to put up what they did about heavyweight boxing, whatever. And I was like, yeah, well, if you'd let your guy fight, it might help, or force your guy to defend his title.
It's mad, isn't it? The Fury stuff that he's not. Anyway, he's not important in this thing. We're going to big up Usyk, because Usyk was the man that defended his titles. And again, so one of the things that I love about it, and you could tell the writing was on the wall, was when Usyk, we talk about the feet, right? And he gets his foot on the outside or the inside. He's quite good at both, but particularly what he's really good at when you watch is he tucks in, and he would jab, and then he'll step with his foot out. And he does one of two things. The right hook either comes over from the southpaw stance.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he'll step back out. So you get that, and then he comes back out. Then he goes again, and then the left hand comes round. What he's doing is then slowly walking you back, and you saw this a couple of times with Dubois on the rope. When he's then suddenly gone again, and that lead foot is now not only on the outside of Dubois' foot, but he's closed that gap where now Daniel's leaning back. He can't move his leg. He can't exit that way because he's worried about the hook. And then he can't exit that way because he's worried about the left hand coming round. And rather than throwing it down the middle, where Dubois could theoretically maybe just move his head, Usyk kind of strafes it round, and he hits he does that kind of Golovkin thing where he hits with here. and he strikes it right. It's such a brilliant shot.
Oh, it's you're pinning your guy in, like you said, because if you punch it straight, you're creating an exit point. But that's the years and years of boxing. That's how his boxing brain. He's such a great, and like you said, like Golovkin, the same in Kazakhstan, and him in Ukraine. It's those years of just training since they were 8 or 10 or whatever. Their just boxing brain is just 100%.
And yeah, and it's just brilliant. And the other thing he does is he fights at such a staccato tempo, so it's not very consistent or anything like that. And that's how he got Dubois in the end. Is it's such a boom, 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 pause, and you would expect normally it's 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, and it goes like to the beat of a drum. And Usyk doesn't do that. And then eventually, what happened was he steps off to the side. And Dubois thinks, oh, thank God, he stepped. Now he's going to step away. And bang comes that kind of... It's like the Crawford jab. That's exactly what it was. It was basically a straight right hand from that kind of like spread across stance. And it was a peach.
But like you're saying about the staccato movement, it's so very clever because how he bested Joshua was because he could read Joshua like a book. He knew exactly what Joshua was going to punch, because we know Joshua hasn't been in the fight game as long, and he knows the basics and he does them very, very well, but he doesn't have that advanced boxing brain that
it's the application, isn't it? Joshua, so this is the conversation. I know that we slightly disagree on Joshua, but I think Joshua physically is totally elite and he can do everything.
Physically, Joshua
can do it brilliantly. It's the application. It's that second too long.
But it's because he hasn't been at it, since he was a child, like Usyk and like Golovkin and those that that were, and even to give him some credit, Fury as well. Fury is a very clever boxing brain because he's been boxing his whole life, and his movement as well is like, I think it's over exaggerated how good it is, but it's still good. It's better than Joshua.
It's effective, and what it is I think Joshua technically throws punches better, but Fury can apply it better. And
it's like a learned behavior versus a kind of a natural behavior,
Exactly, yeah. And it's an active process versus a subconscious process. That's just good. But that leads us nicely on to...
We're getting very heavy there.
I know, right? We're very philosophical as well. So that leads us nicely on to Anthony Joshua versus Robert Helenius. That was another heavyweight title. Not heavyweight title fight. It was another heavyweight fight. No.
The only title on that card was the Southern Area title.
So it was. That was a good fight as well, Mr. Fisher. That was a very good fight.
It was the fight out of the card, which is famed praise, but it was a very good fight. I was very impressed with Johnny Fisher's performance.
Yeah, I was very impressed because the guy was like
everything else on that card. Dreadful. After Johnny Fisher said, because I think there was a very good fight on the pre-undercard. We didn't see that, but everything after Johnny Fisher was dreadful.
Right. I'm going to make a very quick pit stop on the Joshua card. We're going to talk briefly about Washington and Chisora. Right? Because I'm not going to mention the fight. I'm going to make a point here. And because we were all talking about how, at what point do they start telling Chisora, enough's enough, you can't fight anymore. Right? And you make the point where he's got to walk away because it's now going to damage his health long term, but he's not going to do that because there's millions and millions on the line. Okay, so that's fine. So Chisora's got to make that call. He is a human being with his own autonomy, and he has his right to make that call.
Exactly.
Then you go to the likes of Hearn, Warren, everything like that. They have no moral obligation to do this, right? And we'd like to think that morally they would do the right thing. This is boxing, guys. If you're here for morality, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. And if Hearn says no, somebody else will say yes.
Well, this is it. And it's all well and good having a go at Eddie Hearn. And there's plenty... And I know Enda and I love to do it as well. If Hearn doesn't do it, you bet your ass that Warren does. You bet your ass that Boxer do it. Somebody's going to do it if they've
Boxer jump in there. And I think there's a clear example of that is who's on Boxer's card this weekend.
Right. So, exactly. Now, this is the point. Stephen makes 2 fights ago, Chisora should have been told to quit. Here's the point. Nobody can tell him to quit because you cannot restrict trade. This is how... These things will go on until people are no longer interested.
Mm-hmm.
in a horrendously, and we were talking earlier on, and I was tweeting about how we go back to Squidge very briefly about how he applies the same kind of love to rugby that we all have for boxing, that we love it. From a sporting sense, for whatever reason, we actually love the sport. This has to be a very cold and calculated decision where you go, right, Chisora versus Washington is not the product that I want, nor is it a product I'm prepared to pay for, nor is it a product I'm prepared to watch. You start treating it like that, it's horrible that you have to then treat old fighters as washed out commodities. But ultimately, that is unfortunately what we're going to have to do. And the way that going forward, I'm not going to watch the fights. That's it. And I think now at this point, we're the only ones who will decide, because they'll only put people on that'll make money, and the only way they make money is if they get eyeballs on it. And I think that's, in a really sad way, the way it's going to have to be done is you've just got to stop watching. To be fair, yeah, like someone, because that's the thing, someone might tell him to quit. He's his own man. He can do what he wants. And again, morally, we go, right.
And people will say, well, the British Boxing Board of Control, they take his license. Well, guess what? He can go to some other country and get a license very easily.
But the thing with the board, what grounds do they have?
Well, say on medical grounds, you know.
Yeah, but their medical grounds would be, a deterioration of his brain MRI. It's not going to happen like that. If you've read the book Damaged, it takes time. But as well as that, if they do that for him, they're opening themselves up to a lawsuit, because why didn't you stop X, Y, and Z? Exactly. So it's not going to happen, guys. So at this point, we have to decide, and you have to vote with your eyes and vote with your wallet, and that's the only way this is going to be. There's going to be any change on it, and that's why. Sorry. And the reason that Chisora is still picked is because Chisora is a name and Chisora sells. That's exactly why he's there. And it's the same with on Saturday, you've Clark against Alan. I mean, that's just I'm really sorry, but it's only because Dave Allen is such a likable, popular guy. I love Dave Allen. Exploited, yeah. But again, he's his own man. He gets. He's 100% his own man. And we, it's just kind of, you're looking in their best interest. But then they might say, well, what else have I got? Well, this is how you do your job. And there's not, boxing, an elite sport, isn't the only job that physically takes its toll on your health, and that's the choice you have to make. And I think education's key. People have to know what they're getting into. But we look at the boxers who have finished, and I mean, Joel interviewed one guy and he'd won the world title, and he was now unemployed in Manchester, and he wasn't able to get a job because he didn't have any other trade or qualification or skills or education. So what else was there? And because obviously his brain wasn't 100% compos mentis, it's very difficult to pick up a job anywhere then. Yeah, it's super difficult, and it's anyway. That's my personal thoughts on that area, on that particular area. It's just the case of we as consumers, as fans, that's how you do it. You have to kind of go, right, everyone has their own right to do what they kind of want. I have the right as a consumer to say yes, no, thank you, fine. Yeah, that's what we do. And then you have to kind of look at some kind of pension for old boxers. Is that something that could be levied from promoters, cards that fund kind of I know, like the Ringside Trust and things like this, to help old boxers, because I think there is a duty of care to them, from the boxing community. But it'd be interesting to see how that is financed. But I think perhaps a levy on promoters' cards, 1% or something, go to that on every promoter's card, so it's not just because it's effective at every level, and just to try and do something for them and not be kind of wholly reliant on charity, or just left kind of go to ruin or box on beyond what they should be doing. At least then they might think, no, I can retire now, and I don't know. We've successfully depressed ourselves, so we're going to move on after a couple of quick points. So one, I know the WBC do stuff for ex-boxers. I have a lot of opinions on the WBC, but that is one of the things they do right. I know that I think it's the boxing writers or one of the board do something. And again, it's to do with the finances. I like the idea of a levy, but we'll not get into political levies. Otherwise, you and I will be here for a while as well. Joshua himself versus Helenius. What did you think of Joshua's performance versus Robert Helenius?
I mean, apart from the knockout, I wasn't impressed at all.
No.
It was dreadful, and the knockout was good. You know what I mean?
Beautiful punch. What a punch that is.
But that's very Joshua, you know what I mean? He's those things are his bread and butter. But up to that point, he was so unimpressive against the guy who'd only fought a week previous. And of course now we've got the whole, but he what's it called? Like he popped dirty, so
yeah, pissed hot.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to use the pissed word because but
yes,
he pissed hot, and so that's apparently why Joshua couldn't knock him out in a round like Wilder because of the drugs. But I don't think that was anything to do with it. To be fair,
no.
I'd say the drugs. The only thing the drugs did was help him get into the ring 1 week after being in it.
My favorite bit was have you listened to this week's George Groves podcast?
No, I haven't.
It's very funny because basically George Groves, how the hell is he pissed hot? He's shit. Yeah, and he was like, it didn't help him at all. He was rubbish, and I was like, oh, George, it's just It's very funny.
This isn't kind of like
That's not how it works.
It's not like Spider-Man. You're injected with a special venom, that gives you superpowers. A lot of it is just basically, to keep you going. To just be able to go a week after previously being in the ring. It doesn't suddenly make you like the world's best boxer. A lot of it's just about endurance and lasting the fight.
But yeah, it was the weird thing about Joshua, and again, it was the same problem, was he has to commit. Like when he commits, he's brilliant because he's so dynamic and he's so good and he punches so hard and technically it's so tight, and it was fabulous because the jab went high, the jab touched high, and then it shot low, and Helenius then he goes straight back into the ropes. He's got nowhere to go, and through comes the right hand, and it was perfect. But that punch was there for 6 rounds.
Yeah, exactly. It was like.
And the thing is this is what I don't like it when people, and we can be accused of this as well, refuse to recognize reality, which was Joshua was like, you've got to get in the rounds, and I was just practicing stuff, and I was like, Joshua's face at the end of that fight had some serious damage, like not long-term stuff, but a good bit of superficial damage. And you're thinking, no, like he's eating punches at these points. Like it's like, don't tell me that, I'm meant to take him this long, when I'm like, I know.
But they're always going to say that, like.
Oh, but it bugs me. I hate it when they treat us like morons. It drives me absolutely mad.
But it's like the whole like the ones who pissed hot. Have you ever had a boxer admit it? Like, I think one did, but
my favorite one in Tyson's autobiography, he admits how he cheated a blood test using a shiwi because he'd basically been up smoking weed the whole night before. It's a great story. I think that's why they have to watch you pass urine, as it was. For that exact thing. It's very funny.
But it was like, the whole Russian Olympics thing where they were basically just passing in and out urine, and giving the guys, well, here's clean urine and there's dirty urine, But I mean, like, it's it's one of the kind of easier ways to manipulate it. Like, and I mean, it's very hard to stand there and watch the guy pee, and I don't know how. Do they literally have to pee in front of them?
Yeah. You have to stand and watch them do it.
But I'm sure they can still sleight of hand, and
that's what they say happens. Whether it does or not is a separate.
Well, I'm sure on a lower level where there isn't as much intrusive checking, where they're just required to give their urine sample, then that's fine. But
I think the whole point that's coming out is that it doesn't happen at a lower level. This is the point I think Hearn's making. And I think, so we'll very briefly touch on the kind of the criticism of the fact that Matchroom are consistently having fighters fail. And I do think it is because they're the ones that testing. I do think, like you said, the majority of them are on it.
Oh, yeah. And then people would go, aren't Matchroom great for testing? But not if they were going to just ignore the tests.
No, and to their credit, they this time, but they have in the past with the Dillian White Rivas stuff. So it's
and the Conor Ben. Like, I mean, if it wasn't for
exactly.
the Daily Mail expose, nobody would know he'd failed twice.
No, and here's the thing: it's whether you want to give them the benefit of the doubt or not. They've either learnt their lesson or they've had their fingers burnt.
But I still believe it's a smokescreen, because they say, oh, we're testing all our boxers. You know, we're doing extra testing. But if they know the extra testing comes without any punishment, all it is window dressing.
Well, that's it. But I think that was the have you watched Coogan's interview with Eddie?
No, I don't watch Coogan Cassius.
No, that's probably a good call. Anyway, during Coogan's interview with Eddie, he does make the point where basically they're trying to do this, this kind of matchroom testing, where they do basically the 365, 24/7 drug testing that Daenerys basically was very famous for taking, right? But they're saying it's kind of pointless. So basically they get this failed test and they go, what the fuck can we do with it? So it's then going, right, well, then you've got to go to the board, but the board aren't going to be able to afford. By the way, this was not what we wanted to talk about. We're here to talk about boxing. We're here talking about fucking bureaucracy about this. So we'll very quickly finish this. And the board
you finish that and I won't.
That's it, right? So then the board go, well, we can't afford to then to process all this because obviously you should have the right to appeal. And it becomes a whole bureaucratic mess. We now are no longer legally able to call it a failed drugs test. That is now an adverse analytical finding for accusatory reasons. It's basically what the Conor Ben thing did was it opened Pandora's box, and we've now absolutely fucked it. And that's pretty much where we're leaving it for now.
Yeah.
For Joshua going forward, do you like the Wilder fight next?
I don't. I think it'll benefit Wilder more than it'll benefit Joshua. It'll make Eddie Hearn a lot of money. It'll probably make Joshua some money, but I don't see Joshua winning.
I give Joshua a better chance. I don't pick him, but I give him a better chance than most people. Style-wise, the big thing here is I think style-wise the fight has favoured Wilder since Wilder has improved technically. I liked Joshua in this fight initially because technically he was so much better, and if you could get Wilder backwards, he couldn't do shit, whereas now he can. Like the Helenius one was a really beautiful step back, right hand over the top. It was really good. And Joshua's lost that ability to drive you backwards.
Yeah.
But I'm going to walk you through a couple of points with Wilder. So Wilder has one win this decade. And that was a 3-minute blowout of Robert Helenius. He has been knocked out badly twice. And those are his 3 fights in the last 5 years. He's not active. He hasn't fought since October last year. And that was a year since he'd got knocked out by Fury. It's not... There we go. This is it. So this is the point. If I was AJ...
Well, I agree with Stephen there. The only thing I would say going against Joshua, and I keep harping back to it, is this: Joshua has lost his kind of mojo, his animal killer instinct. And that's what's going to go against him because he hesitates. And he who hesitates is lost. And that hesitation will be absolutely jumped on by Wilder. And whatever Wilder has, he has got incredible power. I mean, incredible power. You'd need to be in all kinds of crap to get up from a Wilder punch.
And that's it. It's Joshua's problem is not technical. In my opinion, I don't think it's technical. He doesn't trust his gas tank and he doesn't trust his chin.
No,
that I think is the big problem. Yeah.
It's psychological.
And it's a case of I think Joshua has the beating of Wilder. I really do. I've always
if you went back Joshua. To the pre-Ruiz confidence, I think, and Stephen's here. If it was the pre-Ruiz Joshua, I think absolutely I'd give Joshua every chance. But post-Ruiz and this timidness, as Stephen has referred to it as, that's why I see Wilder will exploit that. And that's why I think Wilder will win.
If you're timid with Wilder, he's so athletic and he's got a very good jab. And if you give him a chance to throw, he will throw. And Joshua's not. He's many things. He's not elusive, as we saw with Helenius. Helenius' jab, he couldn't miss him with the jab. And you can't be hit. Like you can't be easily hittable. And Fury was able to pressure him and keep him off balance and basically make him keep the right hand in his pocket until he was knackered. And even then, he still nearly took his head off. Is Joshua going to do that, or is Joshua going to try and fiddle his way and get himself? What I see happening is Joshua stands there doing this and he throws a shot. Joshua is winning the fight because everybody's winning the fight against Wilder. That's a top-level heavyweight.
Yeah.
And then Wilder lands a right hand. But like I said, I've always liked Joshua in this fight. It's like you said, it's the application is going to be the problem, and I think that ultimately will be it. I don't think it happens next, personally. I think Wilder ends up fighting, and I think that means Joshua fights again, and I think this ends up going back.
I think we knew it wasn't happening next when immediately after the fight, when, Hearn was going, oh, yeah, it's definitely happened. He moved. All of a sudden, the language wasn't clear,
yes.
Be
very tricky.
It went back into kind of hypothetical kind of language, and I went, yeah, that's not happening. He was only using that to boost that card, which was really dreadful. Like,
it was.
Imagine that being on pay-per-view. Like, fuck me.
Well, it's one of those ones where it looks nice on paper. Like, you've got Derek Chisora as chief support. You've got Hrgovic for the mandatory challenger to the world heavyweight title. You've got, who else was on the undercard? We were just talking about. So was Campbell Hatton? Campbell Hatton's usually on those cards.
Was Campbell on that card? No, I don't think he was.
Don't know. Anyway,
no, maybe he was.
It looks good on paper, and it sells. But actually, application-wise, it's terrible. And it reminds me of, they did a card, was it Leeds, years ago, like a couple of years ago, or Manchester or something, and it had like Katie Taylor, it had Conor Benn, it had Chris Eubank, it had all these really famous fighters. And I watched it. It was 5 crap fights.
Yeah, no, but that was always the Hearn thing. He's like, loaded card. I said, yeah, loaded on one side.
Yeah, it's one side, isn't it?
Fucking nobody that has a chance of beating them. At least with other promoters, there is a chance their boxer might be beaten, but Hearn seems to take a...
Do you mean Top Rank? Because I've never seen a Frank Warren card that's like that.
Well, no. Probably, yeah, I'm probably going to America. But then, of course, people will say, well, actually, Hearn's had a lot of his beaten by Mexicans,
Yeah. But this is another thing, by the way, is we're moaning at Eddie Hearn because obviously these are Hearn cards. Boxers' cards have been terrible.
Oh, boxers just awful. Like, boxers are Hearn wannabe. And I mean, when you want to be that, and we're criticizing that, that means that boxer isn't even at the races. Like, boxers just pure dreadful. Like, that pay-per-view offering at the weekend, everyone goes, oh, it's a great card. I said, it's not. It's not even pay-per-view worthy in my eyes. I mean, who thinks Chris Eubank Jr. is going to do anything different?
It wasn't pay-per-view worthy at the start. It's not pay-per-view worthy now. I am loving the fact that Liam Smith, by the way, is getting his flowers. Like, let's just say that. Like, I love Liam Smith. I saw him beat Anthony Fowler up in Liverpool, and he is loved up there, and he's such an underappreciated fighter. I'm loving the attention Liam Smith's getting.
Well, yeah, I'm not the Smith brothers' biggest fans, but anyway.
No, well, yeah, I can understand. Yeah, they've got other issues, but I'm gonna.
But as a boxer, Liam Smith is very good, and I mean, he's making easy money beating up Anthony Fowler. Now he's going to get easy money beating up Chris Eubank, and that's fair. No.
Yeah. So anyway, I think British boxing this year has been pretty poor.
Oh, it's been atrocious. It really, really has. Like it. That is true, but I think, Stephen, and I've been saying this, I think Hearn has taken his eye off the domestic scene, and he wanted to crack America. And if that was at the cost of domestic card, he really didn't care, because he was working with DAZN now, which is international, and previously he was only working with Sky Sports, which was a British product. So he wanted to crack America. He thought he cracked America, but he didn't crack America. I mean, I think PBC and Showtime and Top Rank have all put him back in his box. No matter what he says about being the best promoter in the world, he isn't. He's barely the best promoter in the UK.
Everyone, there's fair criticisms for everyone. So my criticism will always be at the PBC that they don't fight frequently enough. When they when they fight, the fights are great, but there's barely any fights. Top Rank, I think, are the best.
Oh yeah, like I've always said that. Bob Barham is just like he's, he could buy and sell these young lads. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's just,
and he kind of does. They're a bit ruthless, but like I think
you have to be. Like they're not going to
and this is it.
That far in the game. I mean, he's Barry Don King effectively. You know what I mean?
we don't do, and this is what we don't do that Top Rank do really well, which is shit or bust fights, which is
Yes.
it's you versus you, winner stays on. And Hearn, Hearn did this, and this was a bit, and they did it for a while.
And
but
I
now,
do think Hearn does that when he brings across the Mexicans. Is really say, well, are you able to or not at the next level? And
they're not.
They've been found out. You know,
Also,
it's very few that have got through.
Yeah, I also think that generally the fighters we have at the minute, this cycle, aren't as good as the ones that were in the previous cycle, which is also fair.
That I think that is a fair argument, and you will, you know, you have to say, well, there's other sports in competition, particularly mixed martial arts, MMA. Have they taken the better combat sports athletes? You know, is that why the next ones coming up aren't as good? I don't know.
I don't know because I don't watch it.
I was going to say I don't know enough about MMA to know that, you know, is this reason for it? But if you look at it, at the viewer numbers and how they've moved, you know, there has to be something there.
But there is, and this is the thing, it's actually been a great year for boxing. It's been a brilliant year for boxing in terms of some fabulous fights that have
internationally,
happened. But I do think the end at the minute is looking a bit new. It's not looking great. But we are going to finish on a high because our favourite fight, and the one that ended, watch the smug face. Watch it slowly come on. Was Navarrete versus Valdez. That was the best fight of last month. And one of us, so very quickly, when it comes to we put up our kind of predictions, we also put it in the group chat. And for the Dubois Usyk fight, I got it right, Endo got it right, and Luke got it right. So we all got it. KO and the rounds, we tend not to guess one.
We kind of caught it. We all managed to catch round 9 wherever our predictions were.
So we were all there, right? But Enda, I tipped my hat to you, sir. You were the only one to get this correct.
Well, and I mean, and I like Navarrete fight, and when I saw it, I was like, yes. I mean, because it's the way the guy boxes as well. You know, I mean, it's quite like Usyk in a way. You know, he contorts from awkward angles. You know,
and isn't it?
That's what I love about it. You know, that's why I think him and Usyk and even Sonny Edwards. You know, it's where these punches come from. You know, where you're not expecting them. Like Sonny Edwards, obviously, isn't as competitive as the other two. But he's an excellent defensive boxer, and that's perfectly fine. And, you know, I've no issue with it, but I know obviously people, if you want to watch it for more entertainment, then Sonny is difficult in that respect, but to see him at his exquisite best, he's brilliant. And Navarrete, I thought, yeah, he's really, really good. Now, I did expect the fight to be closer, and it was an engaging fight, but I always felt Navarrete was on top the whole fight.
Do you know what I thought? I thought it was a competitive beating.
Yes. That's exactly it.
What I thought. Well, because I didn't watch it. I mean, I'm weak and I don't watch the early morning ones.
Well, it was only because I just couldn't sleep that night that I ended up watching it live. Otherwise, I hadn't intended to watch it live, but then I was awake, so I went down and I watched it. And it was, you know, as good as Navarrete was, it was better than I expected.
Marco Polo says, I want to see Usyk Wilder. So we'll park Navarrete and Valdez for a second. We'll go back to that. Who do you like in that fight? Because I think that's a great fight.
It is, and this is where I think Usyk is going to run into trouble because Wilder and Fury are both bigger, and they're a lot bigger, you know. And Wilder has got that power that if he catches Usyk, it could be good night, Irene.
But that's the same for everyone.
But can he catch Usyk? Because I think it'll be easier to catch Joshua than Usyk. You know, and will Usyk just frustrate him to the point that he'd be just like, what the going on here? So Usyk could just break him down mentally, kind of a thing, early on, and then nothing comes of it. And Usyk will, you know, like that, he could finish him off in the later rounds because Wilder is just bamboozled by Usyk because Wilder isn't as, you know, skillful or as clever as Usyk. But like everyone says, Wilder's got those really big punches, and if they land, they land. But I would still back Usyk in that respect.
I think the punches are fair. I'm actually going to go out here. I'm going to go full Duke and say he's all wrong for us, baby. We don't need that kind of man in our lives. Usyk is a nightmare for Wilder, based on the fact that, like you said, so the trajectory is Wilder's great, the punches right down the line.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to catch Usyk clean.
Oh God,
I was right at the
you
end.
saw how he pivoted and moved. I mean, sure. Why would we be throwing punches that land an hour after Usyk's gone?
Honestly, Usyk would give Wilder fits. I've always thought this, and Usyk's got. Whether you believe, we all can agree he doesn't like it to the body, right?
Oh yeah,
I think he's got a glass body, but he doesn't like it to the body. Wilder doesn't throw body punches. That's not really a problem. I think Usyk's feet are all wrong for Wilder, and he just presses him, and I think Wilder gasses out, and I actually think Usyk would ultimately stop him.
Yeah, that's what I was saying as well. Yeah, in that kind of.
But I've always
12 thought, more than 6-9, but you know what I mean.
It's like styles make fights. I've always thought that the fight's there for Joshua to beat Wilder, but I think the style-wise it's always favoured Wilder, and I always thought that Usyk is just an absolute nightmare for Wilder, just all kinds of wrong. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've said that I still think that Fury Usyk wouldn't be that great a fight. It'd be quite messy. But anyway, circling back.
We're back to Navarrete.
To Navarrete and Valdez. Do you know what I love about Navarrete that so few fighters these days seem to do? Is he throws punches in bunches and he actually lets go of combinations. And that was his undoing. As Valdez would line up a big shot, then he would either half miss it, and maybe he'd catch him every now and again, but not fully clean. And he's put all this effort into it. He's gone, shit, the guy's not going anywhere. And he just goes bang, 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 uppercut. Like you said, the jab, he'd come back, he'd throw. Oh, it was just.
Yeah.
I was totally wrong on that. I thought that he'd reached his ceiling at the weight with the Wilson fight. And I ignored the fact, and I broke one of my rules, which was Valdez had 2 poor performances back to back.
Yeah.
In fact, more than 2 if you actually sit and look back at it. So I thought he lost the Conceição. I thought he was absolutely schooled by Shakur, but everyone's going to be schooled by Shakur. Yeah. And then he didn't look great in his previous fight either. So, and I ignored that rule, and it was kind of my own fault, but it was a great pick on your end.
But I think what people were going back to was kind of levels there, that the level that we're competing at, that should see Valdez through. But it'll be interesting, and where Navarrete goes next, I know there is talks of a Joe Cordina, but I don't think that'll ever materialize. I don't think there's enough money or interest for that fight.
I would love to see that fight. But
I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's a financially viable fight.
Navarrete up for Shakur. That's where it's going. I think Shakur's going to get a title, and if they can't, Tank's not getting into the ring with Stevenson. Haney's moved up, so Haney's gone. He's not an option. He's fighting Prograis. That's where there is. They'll get Stevenson will fight Martin for a vacant title.
Yes,
and I would be shocked if his first defense isn't Valdez and isn't Navarrete.
Yeah, would be a good fight too. That would be a complete clash of styles there.
So this is an interesting point. Joshua in the third fight can defeat Usyk. I watched all of Usyk's fights. I'm from Ukraine, but Joshua's progress is really big. Right. I thought, and this was something that I think we've kind of debated previously, I thought Joshua's best performance post-Ruiz and post-Klitschko as well was the second fight against Usyk under Garcia. I thought he looked really good in that fight, and I was really hoping he was going to kick on, and I thought teething problems against Franklin, fine, new coach, but I didn't think Joshua got any better against Helenius, whereas I thought he was very authoritative, and I think it's so much of boxing is about being first and dictating how it goes. And he is still learning, but he's an Olympic gold medalist. He's a 2-time heavyweight champion. He's 33. How much do you have to? How much more is he going to learn at the expense of being good at what he's doing?
Yeah,
so I think that's a lot of it.
And I don't think, given the fights that are available for Usyk, I don't think there's any love or any interest in a third Joshua fight.
I can't see the third Joshua fight.
Because had it been 1-1, obviously there'd be a trilogy. But at 2-0, why? Because obviously everyone wants the Fury fight, and the Wilder fight is interesting for people because they haven't fought. But seeing him fight Joshua again, I can't see that being viable whatsoever. Especially, and I think commented about this earlier about, we're in a financially constrained time now, so there isn't that money to be wasted on kind of fights that mightn't get enough interest because people are very picky and choosy now about what they buy, what they pay for, what they go to. Because even if you look at it, when the competitor went to Helenius, the amount of people that took a refund from the O2, you know, and they had to close off a section, you know, so it tells you about, you know,
position we're in.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't fight Wilder next, if he does have another fight, I think it would be a good one, would be Ruiz. If they can get Ruiz in the ring.
Ruiz with who, sorry?
Ruiz with Joshua.
Why not?
So I agree, Marco. I think he can afford to take risks, but I don't think he will.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't think he does take the risk. And I think that's up here rather than... He could, but I don't think he does. I don't think Ruiz would take the third fight for, other than, like you say, a boatload of money, but that's the fight. If he doesn't fight Wilder, it would be the one.
Yeah, and how much money would Joshua generate? I don't think it'll be that big.
No, not that big. I think they sell it. They sell it hard.
People, Joshua never cracked America, you know. So that American market, you can say, well, he's huge in Africa. The money doesn't come from African pay-per-view. You know what I mean? Like American pay-per-view is serious money.
And Ruiz would be the one. That's the thing. Ruiz would be the one to do that, and I think that would actually be quite a good way to get it. Yeah, probably. And I think that's probably the thing. We're coming. This is the thing. We're going to come to the end of an age very soon.
Oh yeah, we're really kind of at the twilight years of this kind of group of boxers here.
We're coming up to the climax of Act 3. This is where we're at, and it's one of those ones where I think we'll miss them in a commercial sense. Whether we'll miss them as fighters or not will be a separate issue. Certainly Usyk. I'm a big AJ fan, and Wilder's always fun to watch, but you never get to see him.
Yeah, because what is coming next is, you know, it's.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Because that's the thing. I think Steve Kim made a very good point as well. Ruiz says, "I'm being lowballed," and if you're only getting one offer, mate, that's your value. That's how capitalism in the market works.
The one thing the issue I do have with that is sometimes they're lowballing them because it's a clever maneuver and say, well, I offered the money, but he didn't want to fight. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
So there is that aspect of it. And then if you accept a lowball offer, then you immediately have diminished your value.
But if you then win the fight, it's all about basically backing
even
yourself.
If you win the fight, people will know that, you know, like unless obviously you've something to offer that other person, you know, in terms of a belt. If there's a belt on line, I can understand it, and that's why the split is always the belt holder versus the challenger. But when there isn't a belt on the line and you take that low offer, you're really changing your market value.
But is it a low offer if you haven't got any other offers?
Well, that's an equally good point. But I mean, low balling does exist and it does happen.
It absolutely does, but I don't think being offered $3 million for the Wilder fight is low balling.
No.
No, I think that's just greed, but that's a separate issue, and everyone's entitled to what their opinion is.
$3 million, I suppose. But actually, dollars are as strong as euros, so yeah, no, it's 3 million.
Well, this is it. Well, it's all better than the pound at this point, isn't it?
No, it's still a stronger currency.
I was going to say technically no, but it's anyway.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Do we have anything else we'd like to go over?
No, I think we didn't quite finish the Valdez thing, but you were talking about who we wanted Valdez in with next.
Yes.
And
who do you want to see Navarrete, and who do you want to see Valdez in with?
Yeah, or Valdez. Yeah, actually, I didn't. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Valdez goes from here. Well, I'm not so sure. Where do you see Valdez going?
Valdez gets one more title shot as a name opponent before retiring. That's what I see Valdez doing at this stage. So Valdez out the ring for a bit, has a comeback, beats nobody, fights whoever top rank have in that division at that time, and he'll be in it. Valdez's next big fight will be a do or die.
Yeah, that's
where it'll be. And I do think Navarrete gets the Stevenson gig, which is, it's not a fight I like for Navarrete. I don't like anyone against Shakur at the minute, but it's I think that's where they're going to go. I would personally like the Cordina fight or the Foster fight. I just want to see them unify. It's that simple.
Yeah, and if obviously Cordina's fighting in Monaco after that, if not if not Navarrete, who do you want to see Cordina in with?
Who do I want to see Cordina in with, if not?
Like, do you think the winner of Wood Warrington is a good fight for him?
That's a very good fight for Joe, because I would pick Joe to beat both of them, and it makes him good money. That's a great fight for Joe.
Because that's ultimately what Eddie Hearn is saying. I mean, that's the
is
winner.
That what they're going for? So the winner steps up.
But you know what's surprising me, and I'm just going to mention that now, the Wood Warrington still hasn't sold out.
I think because the luster's gone. Like you say, there's a financial crisis, and the luster of Warrington is gone.
Is gone, and Wood never had the same backing as Warrington. So, like,
no, I love Lee Wood.
I do. I think. I mean, and I wasn't a Lee Wood fan, but he's bought me over, and but I think, and if he fights Joe Cordina, it will be, back in Sheffield or in Cardiff, or in. Well, I suppose where's Wood?
Nottingham.
Sorry?
He's from Nottingham.
Nottingham, yeah. Well, they have the Nottingham ice rink, don't they?
The arena. I was there for Froch Butte. It's a great little arena.
I think that would be it. I mean, there's no point in looking at the city ground because if you can't fill a 20,000 for Warrington, you're not going to fill it for Cordina.
No, I think that's like a 10,000. Like, it's a great arena fight. But
yeah, it's a brilliant arena fight, and I think they're better off. I think these stadium fights are a bit hyped, and the only fights that I seem to ever think work at stadiums is really heavyweight on a big bill.
Oh, I went to the Fury White one. It was awful. I hated it. Worst experience I've had at a fight by a million miles. You couldn't see stuff. It was an absolute nightmare. The card was terrible. It's just the atmosphere was great for the ring walks. That was about it.
Oh yeah, but that's all it is. It's just the occasion, I mean, like, if you're sitting in the arena, it's so in a huge stadium up in the gods. How are you going to see anything, But like, whereas in those like Sheffield Arena, Nottingham Arena, Cardiff Arena, in the ice rinks, it's a much tighter, compact space, and it's inside, so you've got that intensity there.
So it's just Stephen's comments just twigged very quickly. The Cordina fight, I think the way they go is they have just signed one of the Mexicans who is a mandatory challenger for Foster. Foster and him are fighting. I think that's on one of the Matchroom International shows. That is where I think Cordina will go next. Because like I said, I don't think he wants the Wood Warrington winner. But it could be a fight after when Joe's got a unified belt. Or when or if get.
But if that's where Hearn is pushing him to Wood Warrington winner, how does he say, well, no, I don't want to do that? And as well, he was talking about fighting Jamel Herring.
It's a weird one. Don't understand that fight. Very strange fight. But anyway, shall we call that there, my friend?
Oh, I think we definitely should.
Before we get lost. Right. We both said we're trying to do an hour, and it's been an hour and 10, and we've still got loads we could say. But it has been a pleasure. Thank you all for getting involved, and thank you everybody for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out the videos on the channel. If you are interested in rugby, there will be some Rugby World Cup content going up. And the next
Come on, Ireland.
Yes. And yeah, if Scotland and that all go through, there'll be some more videos on that. And the next boxing video up will be on the current active all-time greats. So we'll go into that. But we will see you again at the end of September. Yes, we will see you see you guys again at the end of September. Have a great night, everybody, and thank you for joining us.
Cheers. Take care, Slán.